Let's do two more examples where we do the AC method in a step-by-step format. With any of these problems, it's called the AC method because we're going to be multiplying A times C. That's why it's called AC method. So in this case, A times C is 12 times negative 3, which is negative 36. So we need to multiply to negative 36, and then we're still adding to whatever that middle number is. So in this case, 16. All right, if we are multiplying to a negative, then we know the two numbers are opposite signs. The only way to multiply to a negative is that one's positive, one's negative. But the bigger number will be positive because we're adding to a positive number. All right, well, what we need to do is list out the ways to multiply to negative 36. And I might just do positive 36 and then we'll figure out where to put the negative. So to multiply to positive 36, it could be 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 and 6. I'm trying to do it in an organized way to make sure I catch them all. And now we need to find the numbers who, when we subtract them, we get 16, right? Because we have one positive, one negative. And I know the bigger number will be positive, so let me just stick negatives on all these smaller numbers. I guess in the last one it's not smaller, but 6 minus 6, that wouldn't add up to 16. 9 minus 4, that's 5, that doesn't work. 12 minus 3 is 9, nope. 18 minus 2, hey, we found it. Where 18 minus 2 is 16, and 18 times negative 2 is negative 36. So that's our two numbers, negative 2 and 18. But this is the one where we split the middle. So when we have an A out front of the x squared, or in this case, y squared, we can't just go right to the parentheses. We have to do this whole split the middle thing. So we're gonna make 16y into negative 2y and plus 18y. You could have done it in the opposite order. Your factoring by grouping might look a little different, but you would still get the same answer. All right, so let me put the first one. So we got 12y squared out front, negative 3 in the back still. We just split the middle term for our factoring by grouping. So now 2 by 2. The first two, I could definitely divide by 2, and I can divide by a y. So 2y parentheses. Remember, we're dividing. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. Y squared divided by y is y. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when dividing a number divided by itself, you get 1. This doesn't like disappear. It is still there. It is going to be a negative 1 though, because negative 2 divided by positive 2 is negative 1. And the y divided by y cancels and you also get 1 that way. All right, hopefully that one makes sense. Let's try the second two. In this case, 3 is what they both have in common. Because the leading term, the first number is positive, I'm going to factor out a positive 3. And then I divide by 3, I get 6y. Divide negative 3, divide by positive 3 is negative 1. Good news, the parentheses match. That's always what we're looking for in factoring by grouping. So 6y minus 1 can factor out, and what's left behind is the 2y plus 3. Nice. And just like in the last video, you can always check by doing FOIL, right? And you should get this sort of, this version with that split middle if you did FOIL. All right, let's try another one. 15z squared minus 22z plus 8 using the AC method. A is 15, C is 8. Anyone know what 15 times 8 is? I know 15 times 2 is 30. So if I multiplied that by a 4, I get 120. But of course you could also, use a calculator. I just didn't have a calculator handy, so 120 is our A times C. What we need to add to is negative 22. All right. Oh, well, in this case, we're multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative. That means both numbers need to be negative, because a negative times a negative multiplies to a positive, but it adds to a negative number. So that's good to know. All right, 120 is our number. Let's make a list. 1 and 120, 2 and 60, 3 times 40 makes 120, 4 times 30 makes 120. I might not find them all, but let's see. We still haven't found anything that adds to 22, so I gotta keep going. 5 times 24, not 22. 6 times 20, ooh, we're getting closer. Because if we made these both negative, that would add up to negative 26. I don't think 7 goes in there. We could do negative 8 and negative 15. That's actually how we got 120. That's really close, where this adds to negative 23. Well, I better hope, does 9 go in there? I don't think so. What about 10? 10 times 12? 10 times 12 is 120. Oh, and if I made them both negative, it would add to the desired sum of negative 22. So some numbers like this, it just takes a little while. This one would be horrible on guess and check, right? Because there's so many things that multiply to 15, multiply to 8, right? We can see just by this list, it would have been a mess. So at least we're using AC method. All right, we found our factor pair, negative 10 and negative 12. So what we're gonna do is split up the middle into negative 10z and negative 12z. Either order, we just need both of them in there. And then we're doing factoring by grouping. 2 by 2. All right, the first two terms, they both have a 5 in common and a z in common. So we're dividing by 5z on both of them. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Z squared divided by z is z. Negative 10z divided by 5z is negative 2. And of course, just like always, you can multiply it out to double check that you did it right. Now, when there's a negative leading coefficient, we have to factor out a negative. So in this case, it's negative 4 that they have in common. And if it helps you to write it out, write it out. Negative 12z divided by negative 4 is what we're doing here. That would be 3z. And then positive 8 divided by negative 4 would give us negative 2. Another way to check is to multiply it out. Another good check is that the parentheses have to match. And luckily ours do. So that means the answer is 3z minus 2 times 5z minus 4.